Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Chairperson. The Constitution of South Africa is something that we really can celebrate, as you've heard from many of the more rational speakers today. And yes, we should continue to celebrate it as the base document which details the principles that all of our legislation should be built on and guided by. Let me quote from paragraph 2, which states, "The Constitution is the supreme law of the Republic. Any law or conduct that is inconsistent with the Constitution is invalid, and the obligations imposed by it must be fulfilled." Assaults on the Constitution have, however, increased as South Africa reels under the onslaught from greedy individuals hiding behind redress to further their self-serving agendas. But today we celebrate this Constitution. It's turned 25, it's reached full adulthood and majority. South Africa is a better place for it. There are, however, areas which remain somewhat unclear and after 25 years should really have been dealt with by now. The inability to craft some of the subservient legislation that the Constitution demands or suggests has had a negative impact on our people and needs to be concluded with urgency. For example, Section 25 is not a hindrance to land reform. The high-level panel chaired by the Honourable Kgalema Motlanthe affirmed this. The subordinate legislation, however, needs some updating, but the Constitution, as it stands, is wholly correct on this point. Since I stand here as a member of the National Council of Provinces, I will discuss particularly the shortcomings caused by the lack of subordinate legislation or departmental regulations that affect the workings of our House. Let's talk about the state of provincial and local government in South Africa. For most South Africans, this is where they interact most closely with government. Local government is failing South Africa and her people. If one consults the schedules of this great book, one begins to understand that the real delivery of many of the rights that are granted in Chapter 2 fall to local and provincial government. When local government fails, therefore, fulfillment of the Constitution fails. And so sections 100 and 139 were written into the Constitution to ensure that there's a mechanism to step in where failures happen. And yet, looking at the Limpopo and Northwest provinces, where interventions have happened, and the many instances where provinces have intervened in municipalities, the interventions have failed. SALGA confirmed in a presentation to the NCOP earlier this year that since 2000, there has not been a single Section 139 intervention that could be considered successful. The Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs was present in that meeting. In such a case, should she just continue with business as usual, or should there be urgent action to fix the system? Well, that all depends on who's running the municipalities that are malfunctioning. We know who runs the best municipalities. The Democratic Alliance has been universally accepted as the service delivery champions in South Africa. But what about the worst municipalities? All run by the same faction of the African National Congress that includes the COGTA Minister, her ex-husband, and the rapid economic transformation crew that are responsible for the constitutional onslaughts that I mentioned earlier. And so there has been no effort to bring in the much needed...
Yes, Honourable Member.
I'm rising on Rule 14, Joint Rule 14.2.
Yes.
14P. The member has just referred to a sitting, the COGTA Minister is the member of this House. He cannot use offensive language without substantiating his allegations.
Yes, Honourable Member, you know that.
House Chair, I rise on a point of order.
Not House Chair.
Sorry, Deputy Speaker. The COGTA Minister is actually not a member of this House. She's not a member of Parliament. She's one of the cabinet members, so that rule does not apply to the COGTA Minister. Thank you.
No, the rules apply, Honourable Member.
No.
The rules apply. Honourable Member, do what you treat her in the way you treat all other ministers. It does not mean like the president, when she's not here, the rules don't apply to him. You must still address her respectfully without making unsubstantiated claims against him. That's the rule, sir. Honorable member, I'm talking to you.
Yeah,
Yes?
Deputy Speaker, I'm not sure. All I said was that she belongs to a faction. I didn't speak disparaging of her.
Honorable member.
I'm not sure what I should apologize for, Deputy Speaker.
Honorable member, you want now to be told what you said.
Definitely not, Deputy Speaker. I'm not sure. Sections 100.3 and 139.8. This subordinate legislation has been in draft since 2013, but it was never prioritized. For the sake of South Africa and for the rights of us living here, this legislation must be finalized without delay. My message to the President is this. Mr. President, it's been well proven that this disastrous minister is undermining you and the project to help South Africa to recover. We await your cabinet shuffle with increasing urgency as your political enemies from within your very ranks work to oust you using the resources that you should ultimately control. Next, let us look at the police services. While the Constitution demands that there should be a single police service, it also says in paragraph 205 that, and I'll quote again, the police service must be structured to function in the national, provincial, and where appropriate, local spheres, end quote. This is recognition that our provinces are very different from one another. The rural policing needs of the Northern Cape differ vastly from the largely urbanized Gauteng and the Western Cape, not to mention the substantially different crime profiles in the various provinces. And so greater provincial say is needed. Again, no need for constitutional amendment, as it is already recognized. It just requires the minister and his departments to issue the regulations to empower provinces to structure themselves to best suit their individual and specific requirements, and the right things will happen. That brings me, Deputy Speaker, to the legacies of the interim constitution. Our 25-year-old constitution did not fully replace the interim constitution that was adopted in 1993. Section 228 of that document was titled Accountability, and in subsection 3 it gave birth to the Joint Standing Committee on Defense, an important body charged with the burdensome role of, and my last quote, investigating and making recommendations regarding the budget functioning, organization, armaments, policy, morale, and state of preparedness of the National Defense Force, end quote. This section was justifiably never repealed. The reliance on this otherwise defunct document to guide the Joint Standing Committee has led to a general misunderstanding of the role of the committee and a consequent erosion of its value. It operates now more or less as an extension of the Portfolio Committee. As it falls under the paragraph titled Accountability, it is obvious that this legacy needs to be retained, but it must be updated and strengthened, especially in the current climate of regional instability. Must be strengthened in order to ensure that our country remains prepared for any threat, yet balances this need for preparedness with budgetary prudence. The functions of this committee must be reviewed, debated, and confirmed. The leader of the Democratic Alliance, Mr. John Steenhuisen, has already told this House and the President, bring the good legislation, Mr. President, and we will help you to pass it. In conclusion, Deputy Speaker, I celebrate our Constitution. I congratulate the contributors to it, especially my colleague, Mr. James Self. I salute the protectors of it in this House, in our excellent courts, and in civil society. And I reaffirm my oath to respect and uphold it today for the remainder of my term in office and beyond, until I am returned to the South African soil that I know is my home. For I too am an African. Thank you.
Thank you.